In business credit, there's always three C's, right? There's
Welcome to Impact Social, where we dive in deep with business owners and hear their story, what they're working on, where their struggles are, where they came from. Part of why we do this is we just found entrepreneurs are different. Like we're not normal. We're built differently. Yeah, and definitely crazy. And so, my whole life I found that I've only really made good, solid friend connections with other like-minded people who want to go out and conquer the world, right, and build a legacy. And so that's what we're here to do, is talk to each other and tell each other stories and have a good time doing it, man.
awesome.
So Dave Burgio, you own Trifecta Credit Solutions with your two partners.
Brad Moderich and Renan Cardozo.
Absolutely. Two great guys making up a trifecta of awesome dudes who are slaying it, right?
100%.
Yeah. So what we're going to do first is we're going to loosen it up. We're going to call this warm-ups. We're going to talk about personal life, just silly things, man.
Are we going deep today, huh?
Yeah, we're going to get real. We're going to get some tears. Who's the female? She does interviews and she always makes them cry. She's known for it.
Oprah.
No, but I am not comparing myself to Oprah. That would be blasphemous, right? Or so tell me about. So let's talk about who you are as a person, right? Let's start there. So.
Yeah, I mean, who am I as a person? That's a great question.
Let's start with family. So,
yeah, I'm a husband. I'm a father of two.
Boys, girls, what are they? How old? Come on.
My son, my son Dominic, he's almost 8 years old. I have my daughter Aria, she's 4.
Awesome.
My wife Jamie, we've just celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary.
My man, 10 years.
Man. Yeah, man.
And she's a teacher too, right?
Yeah, she's a middle school teacher at the Bethlehem Area School District.
Ooh, bless her heart.
Yeah, if we really want to go deep, at Brockville Middle School.
Oh, well. Yeah, I'm always like, should we talk about details like that? And I'm like,
yeah, we can leave
dude,
that
you can
out.
Find everything. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing hidden.
And, and she's a great person. I mean, she doesn't worry about that. She, her, when it comes to teaching, her thing's always about impacting her students. She's in special ed, so she deals with a lot of, different needs, different IEP stuff that honestly I have no idea about.
Mm-hmm.
I probably belong in that, to be honest. So,
Funny you say that.
but no, like the stories I hear or see or message or emails that kids send her when they're older down the road. Right?
Yeah,
when they're like high school age or beyond that, because she's been a teacher for a long time. So, she's a special one, that one. So
that's
obviously,
awesome.
Trickles down to our kids as well.
Awesome. So, when we work with people and we're talking about building, right, it's always building the business, but that holistic approach, you can't build a business without a solid base of personal life as well.
Yeah.
And so having that solid partner, and at the same time, a lot of times we have this conversation with guys and gals, usually guys though, because we're kind of all in on one thing instead of being able to balance things better, right? Mm-hmm. And we're like, dude, you are building a business, but you're also building a family. Like your legacy is part of, your family's part of that legacy. And so it is so important to be investing in building that. So what outside of your business life? Tell me, so we got to know each other and we're generally attracted to each other, pretty for, I don't know, a year now. We've been, I definitely hang with him. Like, he's a cool dude, right? Yeah. And I love what you did with, you introduced me to 75 Hard and Andy Frisella, and it's so funny. You were like, dude, your coach, your consultant, you guys are hard-nosed people that, don't accept excuses. Dude, and you're fat, man. What are you doing? Get your shit together, man. You know what I mean? You're fat and you're not eating right. You're not, you got to get this under control. And that's that balance of managing multiple foundations for a true solid legacy, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about your journey through that.
Yeah. Balancing, I hear you say that word, and like for me, it's like I kind of look at that a little differently. I look at it as blending, right? Because like you're never.
That's a healthy way of looking at it.
Yeah, because I mean, I was out late last night running in the rain. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to.
I get so mad when you send me those text messages and videos.
Then don't look at
you
my
and hurricanes.
Story. Yeah,
oh,
don't
man.
look at my story today, then, man. So, but no, I mean that program in general changed my life, and for lack of a better way that you put it out, saying you're fat and, and so forth. But
hey, those are just your words, man. No, I'm just playing.
But in all seriousness, when I do say, I'm very forthcoming when it comes to that program because I know the value it brings. And speak about yourself. It's brought you value, right? Like,
absolutely, I love
tremendous value, dude. You lost 30 pounds? Like, and it's not even about the weight loss. It's about
mental toughness.
Yeah, man. It's what happens.
He says it, and it is. Like, first weeks, drinking a gallon of water was the hardest thing.
Mm-hmm.
I even told you that.
Yeah.
And then, like, Brad, your partner, was like, dude, save this book until day 45. And I was so glad I did because it's mental toughness,
Yeah.
It's about committing to the grind and holding yourself accountable to excellence.
Yeah,
right?
100%. The standard, as what we call it. What's the standard? What's your operating system? For us Apple guys, what's your iOS? All right. So how are you performing? Like everybody has a standard, whether that's a high standard or a low standard, right? So which standard are you holding? And going back to the whole fat thing, as you're calling it, the reason why, like, when I speak to somebody, number one, I gotta like them, right? If I'm really gonna, or we gotta click, if I'm gonna keep it, that type of conversation. But number two is the reason that I do that too is I wish at the point in time when I started it, somebody told me that to really get it together. Like, dude, you're slipping, man. You need to pick it up. Like, if you're performing or looking to perform at a high level, like, you got to have all pillars covered. You can't have one slipping. So it's like, well, if nobody's really told me that, I mean, I've been indirectly told, right? But not like, hey, to me, I look at it as, hey, man, you can do more. You can do better, And it's not like, I think people in general or society, man, has a hard time keeping it real. And the people you really want around you, I want somebody to tell me the truth 100% of the time to keep it real. Hey, you're super huge, you're jacked, that's great. Yeah, it's a little ego booster, but hey, man, you're fat, you're a little sloppy, you're sleeping in, your diet sucks, you're not performing at a high, like, man, that's telling me that I got room to grow, I got to do better. You talk about legacy, like, what kind of legacy are you leading at?
Yeah. I mean, about that weight loss and who you surround yourself with, one of the things that really frustrated me in the beginning, it's like, hey guys, I'm doing keto, I'm losing weight or whatever, and so then you come across people and they're like, oh, here's some whatever, and I'm like, no, I'm good, I'm not eating that right now, I'm on a diet, right? And they're like, oh no, it's fine, it's nothing, and so like, that frustrated me because, like you said, it's like I want somebody who's going to be real and support me the way I need to be supported. And so what I started saying to them is like, hey, I don't need another reason for an excuse. Like, look at me.
Yep.
I've made excuses for a long time. What I need from you right now is somebody to support me in my decisions to be healthier and to achieve my goals. So please, when I say I'm on a diet or something like that, please say, great job, you're right. You don't need that, or whatever it is, right? And pretty positively received. But either way, they took the line and helped me out. So
yeah, the only way that's not positively received, like, that's a flaw in them, man. Like, that's never a flaw in you. Like, that's either their own insecurity or something that they're dealing with. The no alcohol is a big one. And
people like get mad about that, and you're like,
yeah. Well,
that's when man.
See, I mean, I've been doing this now for 3.5 years. Like, whether I do the whole Live Hard program the entire year, or if I do 75 hard to try to push it 3 times in a year, which is basically a whole year anyway. Yeah. But like, having that, and the beauty of it, and you'll find this out down the road, as you incorporate that lifestyle and that program into your life, more things are going to compound. You're always going to learn something new about yourself every single time. And the funny thing with the alcohol thing or not drinking it, now I actually like messing with people with it, because some people will assume if you tell them, "Hey man, I'm not drinking," or "I don't drink," they'll assume, "Oh, you're an alcoholic. You're
you're a friend of Bill." Yeah, man.
Right?
Which is good. It's better to be a friend of Bill than a friend of the bottle.
Yeah,
you know?
right. So like for me, it's just now it's like I think I'm 7.5 months in. I haven't had a sip of alcohol, right? Not that I've ever been problematic or anything like that, but it was just a decision that I made. Hey, if I could take this to a year, because I understand at this point in time, and I used to be a big drinker back in the day, but as I got older, have kids, you kind of wean away from it. And some of my circle and my friends, or those that we have things in common, kids and so forth, they're still part of that lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with that. That's their decision, right? And that's okay. But also on my journey or my standard of where I'm going now, that's not part of my life anymore. My wife actually came along with that too. She really like cut it out. Yeah, if she's with her friends, maybe here or there. But for me, no, I'm 7.5 months in. I go to networking events. I have weddings coming up, birthdays, whatever. And I'm the lone guy. Hey, you want to come to a brewery? Yeah, I don't care. Like, I'll just drink water. And I was like, what? Like, I don't have a problem with it. Some people will be like, they'll be afraid to talk about it because of the pushback. Oh, I'm not drinking. Oh, you're an alcoholic. And then they'll lie about it. Like, yeah, I am. It's like, no, dude, stand up for yourself. Have some pride, right? Show the standard. Oh, you have a problem. No, I don't have a problem. I just choose not to.
Yeah. Well, and, alcohol is such a part of the American culture and identity.
Yeah.
But it is a chemical that we use to medicate. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's my story, right?
Yeah.
Like I was never classified. I mean, I guess actually you probably could be classified as an alcoholic. I think it's like 1 to 2 drinks a day for a week or something, 5 days. Like, I mean, there's like binge drinking. There's different standards. I mean, but they got strict numbers for that. And, my wife, who is, she's perfect, honestly. Like, if
they all are,
you guys have met her, like, she's perfect. So, like, no sarcasm there at all. Like, she really is. So, but she's also, a therapist and doesn't drink, and she's perfect, right? Like, it's tough. Yeah. But, she always talks to me about that, and it's like, the truth about it is that it is problematic drinking, though, because when you look at, like, are you going to do a second workout that night if you crack 2 beers?
No.
Are you checking your emails? Are you getting that extra edge on the other guys who are also hustling, trying to enter your space and kill it? It's a race at all times, and a lot of times the secret in entrepreneurship, small business, is, are you willing to put that more in, right? Russell Brunson says it's whoever's willing to pay the most to get the clients in marketing. Yeah. Well, are you willing to work, and give up the drinking for it?
Well, you're going to pay something. Right? Like, it doesn't matter on what end. You talk about Russell Brunson, Jocko Willink, right? Besides extreme ownership.
Extreme ownership, baby. We talk about it all the time.
Right. So now take the second part of that, dichotomy of leadership. So you got that both sides, right? That dichotomy of that, okay? Well, you're paying a price. So which price? You paying that good price, or you paying that negative price, right? You got a return on investment, or you get no return on that investment.
Loss.
Yeah, big loss. The drinking thing, like with me, it just came to a point. The last time I drank, it was, like it's a crazy day. It was December 22nd. It was a Christmas party.
It's a bad day when you remember the date.
No, I don't. And the only reason I remember that is because, it was kind of a little thing, like, with another family, like our kids were there. It wasn't anything wild, but the point was, it was like, okay, I'm doing this. And then I just didn't feel good the next day. It was probably a mixture of like the few drinks that I had, but like they were loaded with sugar. Like, it's also the mixing of stuff. Like, it's just out of my realm, like from that point in time. And then it wasn't just that night, but I didn't feel good the next couple days either. And like, there's been some times where I've had some wild nights, but still could like function the next day. That wasn't a wild night, and it still took a while. And I'm like, what's the point anymore?
Well, yeah, like that, and that's what I remember in college. I'd be bartending, waiting tables, get out, close another bar,
Man.
plastered, like, you know what I mean, like stupid, and then I'd be up at 4:30 in the morning to go open the gym I worked at to get a free gym membership, and dude, I just like sweat it out on the ride, like eat some eggs and be working out, and it's like, dude, I can't. Like, now it's a 3-day recovery for, a slight buzz. And it's like, dude, I don't got time for that.
No, you don't. And again, like, I don't have a problem telling anybody about that either. Like, I'm not really the odd man out. I heard something interesting this morning. As a matter of fact, it was a podcast geared towards 75 Hard.
Who was it?
And it was a guest. I forget. His name was... because I have 2 minutes left. Let's see. Let's break it out here. So on Andy's podcast, Danny Miranda, he has his own podcast. He was a guest on Andy's this morning, and one of the most interesting things that he said in perspective, I never looked at it from this point of view. And you and I were joking before about going out in the rain, or you said like running in hurricanes. He made a very.
I said it. You did it.
Sure, I'll take that. But he said something very interesting that when you do things, conditions are never ideal, right? Like you do things regardless of the conditions for that mental toughness, right? So conditions are never ideal, and that's when you dive in. But he said something really interesting. He goes, no, as you go down this journey enough, like it's cold, it's raining, you want to sleep longer, right? Should you cancel this meeting or whatever, right? Now it becomes, no, I'm the condition, right? Everything else is just background noise. It's raining, it's hot, like I'm the condition. Those things have to run around me. And I thought that was really interesting, man, because now I do some stuff. I just don't think, I just do. Networking event last night, got home late, and I'm like, I got one more task to do. And it was downpouring at 8:00 last night. All right, let's go get wet.
Yeah.
At least it ain't cold. Like, let's go.
Well, and that's the grind you need. One last thing about alcohol, it's like for you and anybody out there, like, don't feel shame in that or whatever it is. Like, that's their problem, right? Yep, and they got a problem with your ability to take something out of your life that they are not comfortable with.
Yeah.
That's their discomfort, and that's them trying to deal with it in a whatever unhealthy way, I might say. But no offense, guys. Like, love you where you're at. It's all good. This is just me, right? I only speak for myself. So what? Let's transition to business now. So you guys, you do credit repair, right?
Part of it, yeah.
So that's a great answer, man. So tell me, what made you decide, you had been in it a little before, kind of working for somebody else?
No.
In between, it was always independent?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you guys really struck out on building something much bigger than what most guys out there are doing, right?
Yeah.
Tell us, what did you see in the industry or the market that, made you do something different, right, instead of copy paste?
Yeah, I mean, I think number one is to just you go back almost 10 years ago when I first started diving into it. I mean, I always had a fascination with it, in some form or another. I had a teacher when I was in 6th grade say, talk about credit cards. And my dad was in business at the time, and that was never, ever discussed. You're talking in
finances.
Not finances, but not even credit, because my dad's business was all cash, right? And the only thing I knew about credit then was both.
Beautiful thing. No, I was playing it.
Right? Was both of my parents' credit was trash because of their divorce. I used to hear my mom complain. I used to hear my dad kind of complain, or get my grandparents to sign off on something for him. I'm like, what? Like, I didn't understand it. Like, I'm barely 10, 12, 14 years old, to really understand. But at that time, when I was in middle school, I remember a teacher stating, and I always had that bad stigma from my parents, saying, get a credit card, you get one credit card, and you pay it in full. So I was like, all right, that always stuck with me. I was like, so is that how you beat it? And I've always been intrigued by things, whether it's stuff like that, how cars work, how something works, right? I've always had that intriguing kind of vision towards something. So that was always in the back of my head. So come 18, right, get my first credit card in the mail as a birthday gift. And I was like, all right, let's build some credit. Kind of on accident, and online billing and none of that stuff existed. Mm-hmm. So when I was in high school,
18-year-old writing a check every month, like,
oh, dude, and making sure it gets there and clears, like make my payment on time,
dude. Yeah, oh man, I love it. I remember having like checks with stamps on them, and like I just couldn't put them in the mailbox, like. It's too much. No, I'm still that way now. That's why I got married.
I used to have, so long story short, like, and kind of fast forwarding a little bit, like, yeah, I had multiple credit cards by the time I was 20. And I used to take one day, right? So how did I build it? A girlfriend I had in high school, we used to go out to dinner every weekend. Used to pay for a credit card. Used to tip on the credit card. And every time a statement came in, I used to pay it. And keep this in mind, guys, like you couldn't check your credit report back then either. So like credit was a mystery then too. Do I have a good credit score or not, right?
Yo, back then, you remember this? You could not pay for McDonald's with a credit card. They were cash only.
You could pay for pretty much almost anything unless you went to like fine dining.
Oh yeah. And they had that Amex little thing. And I remember
Diners Club.
Oh yeah, baby. Yeah, we're so old, man. I love it. I love being a grumpy old man.
Like the entertainment book, it used to have to tear out coupons. Mm-hmm. Diners Club. This takes this credit card. Visa, MasterCard, Amex. No Discover. No Novus Network.
Yeah. I'm like, man, I'm going on a date on the wrong week, man. I got to find a good place that can take my card.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah. I think McDonald's didn't get credit cards until like 2002 or 2001.
Yeah,
that's crazy to think about.
Wow, and it's almost like it's been reversed now from cash to cards. You kind of give it the correlation to, like, look at the music industry is like a good example, right? Like you had vinyl, then it went to tapes, right, and then it went to CDs, and now CDs. I never thought CDs were gonna go away, man. I really didn't. And now you have digital music, like
streaming. Like I don't even. You would buy songs for a long time.
No car when cars always had either a tape deck, a CD player. Now you buy a new car, they don't have anything. And they don't even have auxiliary cables anymore, right? Like it's just all
USB plug. I love it.
Well, or wireless now. I
buy my car. Yeah, so I buy my cars cash.
That's okay.
Which means I'm not buying a new car.
No, it's the worst thing you could do.
It's tough. Like, I mean, I would if I could, but I'm like, nah, let's go look at the used cars.
Yeah, release them for the business.
Yeah, well,
that's okay. But we'll maybe we'll touch on that.
Yeah.
But no, like the whole credit card journey, man. Like leading into business. I mean, that's how it started. I bought my first car like when I was 20 or 21. I bought a house with my mom. God rest her soul, actually, like, got rid of a couple of years ago after she passed away. Like, I bought it together with her when I was 20 years old. It was really weird.
You had your shit together, huh?
I'd like to pretend I did, because a couple of years later, when the economy tanked, and then my lifestyle was wild, not because of credit cards, but because of drinking, like we were speaking before. Got in some trouble, lost an income stream or two because of my own stupidity and my own actions, right? Mm-hmm. So, look, that's on me. That's not on anybody else. So I actually had to live off of cards for a while, and I tanked it and I damaged it. But right when you're 24 years old, 24, 25, I was like, all right, I got to fix this problem, right? So like I kind of took it upon myself, and again, the internet wasn't as prevalent as it was. It was there, but not crazy like it is today. You're talking, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I thought I did a good job. I dug myself out of this hole. I paid this, I paid that. Woo, like $25,000, $30,000.
That is big.
It. Yeah, but like knowing what I know today and looking back on that, what a waste of money, man.
Yeah, like you would have consolidated.
The laws, like, did I really even have to, from my own situation? Like, is this even relevant on my credit report? Like, yeah. And a bunch of that stuff I did settle out, and I still made mistakes, man. But you know what? Like, it was probably, looking back on it, it's probably one of those hidden investments that you make in yourself to learn all this stuff, because everything we do now, it's stuff like we've either tested or have some type of experience in. So I love like when I speak to people, because we've had these conversations on how like credit, manipulating credit, and like you just said, you're like, dude, I spend cash on everything, and it's like, well, you can do this and this. Well, it's like, all right, Mr. Know-it-all guy on the positive side. Well, how do you help me negative? Oh, well, let me tell you, because I've smashed it pretty good before, right? So yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. So you don't make a $25,000, $30,000 mistake, right? Over time, and that time period, man, to dig out of that hole, it took about like 5 years, maybe 6 years, somewhere along there. Actually, like right around when I met my wife was, back in 2011 was like when I wrapped it all up. So now I'm not even in my 20s anymore. I'm about to be in my 30s at that point in time.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not even the money that like made me mad about it or kind of pissed me off. It was that it took that long to think that I was doing the right thing to clear it up, until I had my best friend, he runs a car dealership out in Hawaii. And again, he still couldn't get a credit report. And I'll never forget this. I knew it was clean because I started getting good offers again. And I'm like, hey, so I called him the one day and I said, hey, man, can you get me a credit report? And he said, yeah. He's like, no problem. He's like, I'll run it for you. I was like, cool. So he's at the dealership, runs a credit report. He's like, oh, damn, dude, your stuff's pretty good. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. I was like, is there anything negative on there? He's like, no. And I'm like thinking, well, I just paid something off a year ago, so I have nothing that doesn't make sense. I was like, you send it to me? He's like, yeah. And when he sent it to me, like,
you faxed it or what?
Nah, he put it in a manila envelope, man, and he sent it overseas.
He snail mailed it? Wow,
yeah, he snail mailed it.
Right.
He put a nice message as the name. I won't say it on here
awesome.
For what it says.
Yeah,
but he sent it to me, and I looked at it.
Join our Patreon to see what that name was.
I got a picture of it. I'll let you know.
That's good.
I'll show it to you. But no, and I looked at it, and I was like, I think I made some mistakes. That's what like the first impression like told me, making mistakes. So I know your old question got a little long-winded here, but fast forward to 2016. That's kind of why it started, like, to looking into it, because I got mad at myself, like, spending all this money. So I took a course locally. It's kind of how I met Renan, too, at the same time. And lo and behold, I already knew Brad. And also, Renan worked for Brad, like, through the sales department in the health club that they were in. So, yeah, that's kind of weird how, fast forward to how all this stuff comes together. But I took that course. Looking back at that course, it was like bare entry. There's a lot of mistakes like with that course, but it got me a start, and it just got me eager. Like, okay, if you can. And then I saw the foolery like in the industry too. Hey, get your stuff deleted in 30 days. Have an 800 credit score tomorrow, and I'm like, you can't.
Just broken promises, right? That culture of
well,
overpromise, underdeliver.
Yeah, or as I call it, like guru mentality, right? Like getting this shiny object syndrome, or the rented Lambos online and all this crazy stuff. Like
I remember when like that Bitcoin summit.
Oh man!
It came out that they like rented Lambos to put in the front. I'm like, guys, like.
Yeah, I mean, I could teach you how to have just through credit, power of credit. I could teach you. Yeah, you have a $50,000 a year job. Like, you can get a Lambo, believe it or not. Should you is a different story. Right?
Yeah.
Can you? Sure. Right.
We were there in 09. Should you get that house? Could you? Yeah.
Oh man, but no, man. Like, it started in 2016. Diving back into it, took the course around 2018. I started doing it as a side hustle. A good friend of mine who's still in mortgages to this day. He's a very good lender in the area. It was a call that kind of changed the course. I never ever really wanted to do this like as full disclosure, as a full-time thing. I thought it just brought value. It helped me bring in extra money, and I was helping other people get approved for homes. The real estate market was booming at that time. People were getting FHAs left and right. So another call that changed everything, because, again, this whole thing was unexpected. I almost feel like either I'm destined for it or it just completely happened on accident. And then meeting with him, posting it about it, he just started feeding clients. Other lenders in the area started becoming – it's almost like I feel I'm going to humbly say this, but like I'm like the guy in our area, right? So I hear. So, and this is what other people tell me, right? Yeah. So it's like, okay. So still doing this as a side hustle. 2020 comes. The world went to hell as we know that. But before that, unfortunately, my mother passed away. Before that, we had a baby on the way at the same time. The world shut down.
That's tough when you know your kid's not gonna ever meet their grandma. Like I know.
Well, yeah, and my son.
I'm sad about that. You know.
Well, yeah, and my son was really young at the time. He really didn't get a chance to know her. He was only 3 years old, and she battled, and he didn't really get to know her a lot because she battled with a lot of health issues at that time for a long time. So for hindsight, like even for her to make it as long as she did, it's fortunate for that, but it sucks at 60 years old, you know what I mean? Because 60 is not that old, that you're gone. That's almost 5 years already, man. That's the crazy thing. It's 4.5 years ago. But no, that COVID happens, and I didn't even care about COVID because, like I said, after my mom, okay, I have an estate, I want to get off my plate because we have a child coming, and I don't want bullshit over my head.
Yeah, like you said, conditions too.
Yeah,
it's like whether or not the weather happens.
Yeah,
this has got to get done.
Well, yeah, and to even go back to 75 hard, talking about alcohol or even dive into business. I only work and this is why I don't a drink here or two there. That's why I quit it. I was I only function two ways: 0 or 100%. I don't
on off switch, right?
I don't have it in between. It just doesn't work for me. It never did. That's why. And if there's something I need to and I always say, once I crack that code, and for anything, it's 100%. It's oh, look out. And that's how I felt with my mom's estate. It's I gotta get this done now. Even the estate attorney, I told him, I was I'm gonna have this thing ready to go in 30 days. This house, so we'll have it listed more, and most of the estate done within 30 days. He's you're out of your mind.
Well, and that was unheard of back then, right? It's not like the last couple of years where houses are closing the same day they go on the market,
Well, no, and that was during the shutdown. Well, that was during the shutdown. I said, I'm going to have this done in 30 days. And he's okay. And then when I had 99% of it done, it was just the house was left, but Pennsylvania shut down real estate at the time, and I had a squatter problem. So
did you really?
It's a whole different story, but yes. But when I had all this done, all this other stuff settled out, cars sold, everything was done. And I went back to him. I gave him some documentation. I said, this is the last thing. I think he was 28 days, and he was that's unbelievable. I said, what's that? He's
but you did what you said you were going to do.
Exactly.
It's not even what you did, it's that you said it.
He's I got to chase people for a year, and he's you got that done? I was listen, man, number one, I said I was going to do it, and I said, number two, I can't have this over my head. The world's going to hell. Nobody's going outside. Me, I don't care. I'm driving. I'm hauling garbage away. There's not a soul on the road at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night.
I got so used to no rush hour traffic.
Well,
it was beautiful.
Yeah, and I felt that it gave me an advantage. There's no distractions. There's no people. You're going to get arrested from the concert beat. Yeah, okay. I can't tell you how many cops I waved to.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
You felt like you weren't allowed to be driving.
I didn't care.
That was nuts.
I didn't care. My attitude, 0 to 100, right? 0 to 1, pull me over. Okay?
We got shit to do. Sorry,
Exactly. So, but anyway, and with the kid coming, ironically, my birthday buddy, we're a day apart. So the end of April, and then, a chance phone call, my good buddy Brad Moderich, at that point in time, I knew him for almost 10 years. I knew him from, being in the fitness industry, but also at that time, he already transitioned out. He was building business. He and his wife were building their business. He was into other things. We were in some other things together with a bunch of people, through energy stuff, other real estate stuff, some people as well. But he called me up the one day. It was kind of his, everybody I think had a COVID thing or a mission, hey, we're all locked out. His thing was to reach out and connect people at that time. So he connected me. It wasn't Renan. It was a good friend of mine now, who I consider a brother named Mike Regina, somebody in Florida, hey, he likes credit, I think you guys should connect. So we started chopping it up, maybe start a business or whatever. And at this point in time, I was dude, I don't know if I want to do that as a business. my direction's not here. Meanwhile, like that's when I started getting bigger too. Gyms were closed. Like my kid was, well, I'm chilling at home, man. Right?
Yeah, that COVID 19 pounds.
Yeah, 19, more like 50, right? So, and just chilling. Like we were good. But anyway, like during all that, conversations, hey, I really, truthfully, like, yeah, I'll go with the motions, like see where it goes. And it's like, hey, Brad, why don't you get involved? Like you have a skill set, leadership, sales, marketing. So that's where the whole trifecta thing came from. And then 2020, we started building it in the background, like, and I'm like, man, we're really treating this like a business. We got logos, like dude, like,
you didn't realize you had a business?
Things I know now that I take for granted now and didn't know then. I'm like, man, like I probably had no business like running a business. Like you treat it like a side hustle. I'm a little credit guru, but no, like this thing today, like it's a full-fledged business. But that's kind of like how it got started. We built it, like, dude, it was always a thought of mine, and I never bothered to look. How do I create an email with my company name behind it? How do I do? Like that's interesting to me, and like I learned, I was like, oh, that's it, like. Oh, okay.
You're talking about like getting a domain with an email? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Didn't even know what that was. Oh, yeah. Because I used to run, hey, you want to contact me on the side for credit? Hey, here's my email, blah, 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 @gmail.com.
Yeah, domains are cheap, man. Like, get it. Come on.
They are. But no, man, like when we started and we still treated it as a passion project for the first year or two because we were still involved in other things then. So we had the brand, we had the awareness, we started creating the relationships. And, Mike, I love him. He's my brother. He had an opportunity for something he had an amazing passion for. And dude, I'm so proud and happy of him because he's crushing it today, man. And, kudos to him. He left the business and that's okay. And then we had an opportunity to bring Renan on who sees what I see in terms of credit and how to put this thing together. And with Brad's blessing and his leadership and sales and marketing background, like, over the last year, the pieces have really started to come together. The other services, the other, I don't even know what you call them, other avenues or ventures that have come along with it, other relationships.
Partnerships.
That too, man. And over the last, especially over the last 8 or 9 months, this thing has just started moving. And if you would have asked me 4 years ago or even 10 years ago to be where we're at, now, and don't get me wrong, we have a lot of work to do. We got a long way to go. But to even get to this point, bro wasn't even on my radar, man. And it's crazy. It's just, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, when you approached me to work with me, kind of how it works, right? You kind of chased me down a little bit. And we were, so in our business, we were really putting out fires a lot, right? We would work with people who were in trouble, right? They probably should have went out of business 6 months ago, right, Brian? And it's that's a tough client, and that's when you wake up and Brunson even says in his book, he's I woke up and I was I don't want to go to work today, and it's that's kind of where we were at for a while, just taking anybody you could, right?
Yeah.
And we started talking about, well, what is our, because, we defined, we teach people how to define their ideal client pro, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And we should have known better, but it was dude, we could help anybody. Yeah, we could. But what we didn't do is say, but who do we want to work with?
Yeah.
Right? If we could be who, not how. I know Dan Sullivan didn't write it. So somebody else did, but Dan Sullivan asked him to write it, right? I mean, he did it though, so he gets all the credit. Amen. But he talks about. Oh man, I forgot my train of thought there. But it's you got to work with people that you like working with every day. That's how this becomes. And you see that dream die in entrepreneurs when it's a job again. Yeah. Right, and they're why? Because they're doing something they don't love anymore, and they're working with people they don't like.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that bad. We love coming in and turning around businesses and making these these stories and changing lives. That is just such an awesome feeling. But then again though, it's like we hate fighting somebody the whole way along that journey. It's like, yeah, but I've always done it this way. Like, what's the internet? Like, I'm like, dude, this is 2015. Like, what do you mean, what is the internet? It's not going away. Like, oh, you advertise in the yellow pages? I'm like, what's the average age of your client base? 84? He's like, yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
I'm like, you got like 5 more years of business before you got to find a whole new group of customers, unfortunately. Like, come on. And so we were on a journey to transition from not just who could we help, right? Who could we really impact?
Yeah.
But who do we want to impact? And that's it. They always say be the buyer, and Dan Sullivan and that who not how. And it's like that's such a good mindset because it's like, yeah, like you be choosy, right? If you're gonna be great and do great things, like who do you want to help? Like I don't want to help a bad guy.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and you know, into our personal journey, you came along, and I was like, yes, we were so stoked to be starting a project and like getting going with you guys. And you know, normally it's like pulling teeth, and we are setting a pace that's like driving, and I mean 9 times out of 10 we'll run projects, and we're stuck in phase 1 of what we would consider a 3-phase true solution for like a turnkey or profit machine business, right?
Yeah.
And like they don't ever want to get out of phase 1 though.
Yeah.
Like the project was always just that, and it's like there's so much more out there. And so when you guys came along and having you guys push tempo and like, you know, we spent way more time than, you know, is normal, and you guys are pushing and like, come on, we need more. And I'm like,
yeah, we stalk you.
And dude, and it was like, I remember being like, I was like, Brian, dude, this is fucking awesome. I love it. Like, let's go, you know? And he's like, really? Like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, man. And he's like, all right, let's go. And it's such a fun thing. Like we've spent more time working with you guys than we have.
I appreciate that. And I know Renan
lots.
does too.
And but we love it. You know, it makes it great. So that's awesome. And you know, that's that attitude, that entrepreneur that like understands the grind and let's go, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, man, I've been a part of failures, right? And another thing about Trifecta, like at that point in time, like I didn't know if I'd ever get back into business again. You know, like brick and mortar per se. You know, everybody talks about online, like, oh, you can have a business for anywhere online. Like, no, like we have an office, like, you know, we have other people that depend on us to, like, we have people. Yes, we have a physical address. Yes, you can knock on our door and see us. We're not just in face space. You know what I mean? So like we're an actual company. But getting to
he
that.
said face space, by the way. That's crazy.
But
that's what we call social media too.
Yeah, right. Well, we're showing our age, man.
Yeah.
You know, but to get back to that point again, like you know, my original background, you know, I spoke about my dad taking cash. Like I grew up in food, right? My dad had a Mr. / Dunkin' Donuts for 22 years that my grandfather was also a part of, right? Mm-hmm. I grew up in that place. My work or business journey started when I was 8, 9 years old. Not working inside, I got quarters for picking up cigarette butts around the property, right?
That's a good business owner. You need to do that.
Yeah, child labor laws, man, wouldn't look good on that
they
today.
Still don't apply to family members, by the way. If y'all looking for that. I know how it works.
But I mean, man,
put your kid in the ads, by the way.
Yeah, right. I mean that started everything, you know. And like if you know anything about that place, I had a miniature golf course behind it, right? So I started working in there when I was 12, 13 years old, and I started working inside by the time I was 14, 15. I started learning how, you know, the ovens, the fryers, the bagel oven worked when I was 16, right? So
I love that your dad wouldn't even let you inside for years.
Well, no. Well, I could go inside. Doesn't mean like
not a lot though,
hey,
right?
Take garbage out.
Yeah,
a gopher. But
I like that though.
Actually like work in the operation and you know you look at kids today. You know, communication and I don't want to go off on a complete tangent here, but like you look at.
But we're gonna.
Yeah, right. You look at most kids today, right? Like, you know, in their 20s, right? Or even some in their 30s now. Like their communication skills are horrible. Like they don't look you in the eye. They don't know how to speak. They can't shake a hand. You know, it's weird to them, but it's weird to me to like interact. It's like everybody's, and I've seen it happen numerous times. They'll look away, just be, hey, oh, nice to meet you, and they get this like weird voice. So for like, it's just strange to me. So
I had a guy who he wanted to do B2B, and he was afraid to talk on the phone.
Oh boy!
And I'm like, that's cool, but this isn't for you. And he's like, what? I'm like, you phone.
Yeah,
you
it still
answer your
exists.
phone, like. You make calls, like you don't text and
text is second, not first.
oh yeah, and like my policy, it's like if we're gonna hit 3 text messages back and forth, I'm just calling you. I don't have time for this, you know. It's like,
but it's just strange. So for me, right, when I'm working in the trenches, like in and my dad, you know, and again, humbly, like at that point in time, he had the best Dunkin' in the Lehigh Valley. There's nobody, and dude, these are corporate facts, right? He still owns the property to this day. That spot was so good that Dunkin' leases it from my dad. Okay?
Hell yeah.
So how about that?
That's
right?
the dream. Sell your business and keep the property.
Dude, this is year number 22 now. 22. He had the business for 22 years. It's now year 22 of the lease.
And they made it a corporate.
Yeah.
Too?
Well, corporate's smart. Not that I'm going to blow up that Dunkin', but they sublease it to somebody else. So it's pretty much as long as Dunkin' corporate's around, right? Like, they're still going to pump it every single month, man. And they extended it a couple of years ago for another 15 or 30, right? Yeah. So like it ain't going anywhere. But it was a sheer luck, prime location, because in '81 when they got it, that part of William Penn.
It was a different world.
I won't give the complete street. Support it, William Penn Highway, right? You know, like that. It was like farmland back then. Now it's one of the busiest streets in Easton. Or that leads all the way through Bethlehem, man. So, like, you know, it's just one of those things where it was a blessing over the last, 43 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. I'm 6 months older than that place, so that's crazy. And to go
it's crazy how you have that parallel story of having a kid come in and starting it, you know?
Right, well, and the only and I'm not knocking my dad on this, my grandparents helped him. My uncle was still alive at the time, like kind of build that together. I was in business with my brother, and it's no offense to him. We probably wouldn't do it again because we're on different trajectories in our life now. But then, my dad ended up having that, on his own at that point. But like, there's a lot of other parallels that I see out of that, like on how business works, right? So you take the Mr. Donut phase, which was 81 to 92, very small, before Dunkin' came in. It's like they bought out Mr. Donut, and it was like, hey, you convert or you got to be on your own and buy a bunch of shit and all this other stuff and figure it out. Yeah. You don't have us backing you up, right? But that, like, once that change like kind of happened, right? So from the early stages, and my parents were still together back then. Like, they got divorced when I was 9, right? So, and the ironic part was my mom worked there until I was like 16. Like, it was really weird. You guys aren't together, but
after,
my mom worked there. Yeah. Because that's
pretty normal though.
Well, we lived down the street, and it was convenient. My mom was close to home, so like it kind of kept us out of trouble. We still found a way to get in trouble.
Amen.
So but I've seen both sides. I've seen the struggle. I've seen what it's like to run a business. I know what it's like to be poor, like to see my family poor. I know what it's like to see him divorce and not have it. I know what it's like for my mom to struggle and have a decent house that my dad struggled to build. Then they're not together. And I've seen what it's like for my dad to start making money, but he also lived in a rough neighborhood that he was trying to get out of. And I saw all that poor side until I was, right before high school. Then it changed because the old adage, oh, you come from family business, man. Like, y'all made it. You have money in this. Like, listen, man, I was a lunch card kid till I was in 9th grade. You know what I mean? Like, I started washing my own clothes in 6th grade, all because my mom shrunk a Nike hoodie that I bought with my hard-earned money. And I said, I'm never letting you wash my clothes again. Because of that.
Dude, I got the same story. That is so funny.
Yeah. Dude.
I'm like, and to this day, I'm still like, don't touch my shirts, you know?
Yeah, right.
Oh.
But I've seen like both sides of that coin, like the struggle come, and the same thing in business with us, man. It's like, like when you talk about synergies and coming together, well, that's a problem most people in business have anyway. They're used to a certain way, and where I'm going with that lifestyle is when my brother and I, we had our own restaurant about 10 years ago. We tried to run it like a 90s Dunkin' Donuts, and in 2013, bro, you get your ass kicked. Like, you cannot do that. The game was changed completely different. And, dude, it was the biggest, and that's probably one of the reasons why I thought at that time, like, we were in it for 2.5 years. We got out for other reasons. But it was like, man, that experience, like, that almost like, like, it's too rapid pace. I didn't understand, like, the dynamics, but a lot of business owners, they'll come in, they have one set ways, they think their way works, they have an ego, like, they don't want to be told that they're wrong. Like, listen, man, the difference between us, like, I've seen it all, and it's like, you cannot grow something by yourself. You can't.
And, you said that, like, almost like an apology before when you were talking about how your dad got help funding his business, getting the startup funds for it. Mm-hmm. And, that is such a huge part of the culture of small businesses. Like, it's not a good story if you didn't do it all by yourself. And it's such a lie. Mm-hmm. Like, we all need help. And the greatest success stories had a network of people helping them grow and giving them alternative ideas and helping them. And it's just not true. Like, that bootstrap story is a lie that we try to tell. It's a myth that is not good for the small business entrepreneur culture. Yeah. And, to what you said, like, they're stuck in their ways. They're on an island, and they think that, like so many times you come across business owners that they don't even know about half the solutions that are even out there, like a bookkeeper. Yeah. Like, did you know you can hire a part-time bookkeeper for like a couple hours? They're like, what? I don't need to hire an office manager? Yep. And I'm like, for a salary position? I'm like, and they're like, and I'm like, this is not new. Like, this is not because of the internet this is coming about. You know what I mean? Like, and it's because they're on that island and they think that that's the right way to do it, is to do it themselves. It's also that culture of like honestly, like, I stopped drinking because I was so broke and I got kids, and like, I'm like, how can I rationalize? Like, I was in a liquor store and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, money's tight and I'm buying booze? Like, get the hell out of here. I walked out like so mad at myself, and it was like, but that's like the true stories of small business. It's like, we call it the second beer conversation. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, because alcohol is a huge part of this world, and especially small business. It's like, that first beer you're drinking with somebody, everything's great, man. Like, oh, I got the house, I got the cars, you think you do. Are we going to send them to private school or vacation, blah, blah, blah. And then that second beer is like, truth be told, my marriage is in the fucking dump. I haven't gone on vacation in 10 years. I'm living on credit card debt. I have a balloon mortgage, and I work 90 hours a week because I don't want to go home. And it's like, I don't pay my bills at work. Like, and it's like, well, let's do something about that, right? Like, let's be real with each other. And if we all just shared that story, that truth, then it, like, even if you're not there anymore, right? Tell a story that you haven't always been this successful person, right? Like, there's been times where you're like, if that angel didn't come and provide that help, you would have broke, Like, small business owners need to hear that. The suicide rates in small business owners is horrible, right? Mm-hmm. Like, any number is too high. But for small business owners, it's painfully high. Mm-hmm. We have clients who, are taking over a business that they started with their spouse, and their spouse isn't here anymore because of suicide. Like, that is not acceptable. And, that's a responsibility we have as a community to address that and to normalize imperfection, right? Mm-hmm. And struggle, and be honest with each other at least, right?
Yeah, you have to.
So thank you for that, man.
Yeah.
So with your business, you started in consumer, mm-hmm. right? Like the what do you call it?
Personal credit.
Personal credit. Yeah. Okay. So if you were to define, I want to put this out here because I've had our clients and people ask some questions for us that we're going to ask you.
Sure.
And before we get to that, though, I want a great definition of what somebody's goal should be for good credit. Like, what is credit for? What do they need it for? I'm putting you on the spot with this one, man.
That's
but,
okay.
Like I define credit, like the credit core system, the credit system is built for lenders to identify people, and they're like, are you good at paying the loan back? And it's not about what you can afford. It's about what you will pay back to me.
Yeah.
It's about their risk, their loans, their money-making scheme, right?
Yep.
It's not you.
Yep.
It's not for your protection. Just like a mortgage is not like there are great mortgage companies out there, right? That are like, and realtors who are like, you shouldn't, but
sales breath.
Yeah, exactly. But then there's the ones who are like, well, you can get this much of a house. And it's like, yeah, you could, but should you, right? And that's where we look at credit scores and say, oh, well, I could, and it's like, yeah, but this is not for you. Yeah. This is for them, right? So what should then a personal individual be looking at, and what should their goal be with their credit, I guess?
Yeah, I mean that's a really good question that I can give multiple answers to that. First of all, you got to understand really what it is. I mean, there's really no education behind it, and like you said, that is by design. I believe it's by design, right? Andy, you want to go back to Andy Frisella? He has a great line, like when he speaks about this on things that he talks about in business portion of his podcast, is that your debt is their asset. It's a line he says all the time. And, the banks are always going to win. Like, that's just a given, right? Lending, like, it's always all about them. If you know how to leverage money, depending on what you're doing or whatever you need it for, sure, you can win too. There's other benefits to that. But the banks never lose, right? Interest rates, great. Well, they know they're going to get paid back at some area. You default, okay, cool. We can sell it off. We can foreclose on it. Same thing with cars, right? Credit cards. Well, credit cards are big. Oh, like how are these companies still in business with all in default? Well, okay, merchant fees, right?
33%. Like, come on.
Interest rates, right? Late fees, tack it on, right?
They only got to bring back 33% of their extended debt to break even.
Yeah, well, okay, that you default. Now they can write it off on a P&L statement. Oh, now we could sell it off on our books, so we could sell it to a collection agency for pennies on the dot. They're getting money hand over fist. They're not going to lose. Okay, it's by design. That's why it's not That's why it's not taught. But what is it really for? I mean, some people, gravitate to Dave Ramsey. There's some good things about him. There's some things that I don't think are some great. But a lot of his stuff is to the average consumer. And if you want to speak to the average consumer, I think educating's key. And that's in our company, it's something we always lead with. I don't care if you're a client of ours or not. You're going to learn something. 99% of the time when I end a call, regardless of the outcome, the last thing I said, hey, did you learn something today? And the answer is always, yeah, man, I learned a lot. Like, it's really eye-opening, But number one, it's really you got to understand how the scoring system works. I mean, it's a big thing, and everything's at your control, whether you believe it or not. And it's really down to. I do this at every seminar, and again, it's one of those.
Give us that Pareto 20%.
That 20%.
Yeah.
Just pay your stuff on time, right? Pay your bills on time, and do not overextend yourself on credit cards. Like, pay them in full, right? That's really it. Everybody's like, what's the secret hack? What do I really need credit for? Well, look, you're not going to spend $300,000-$400,000 out of pocket for a home, right? You're going to need to build credit if you want to live that quote-unquote American dream, right, to buy a house. That's what most of our clients are for. Okay, well, I don't want to buy a house. Like, we're in a different society. I want to rent. Well, guess what? You need good credit to rent, too. Your credit, believe it or not, from a scoring perspective, needs to be higher for a rental than to get an FHA loan. That's the reality. I can almost assure you, I ask any investor, right? Hey, you need 3 times the income. I mean, Mr. So each one could be different. I'd like to see it at a 670, right? Well, if you're coming in at FHA, if the bare minimum to get an FHA is 580, you're going to pay for it. Don't get me wrong, you're going to pay for it. But the bare minimum is a 580. You can't get a rental with that. Okay?
That's crazy.
That's a fact. That's a reality. And that's federal stuff too, man. Like, so it's everything. It gives you buying power. When you really know how to do it, I'd rather the Pareto effect, right? Like, okay, well, hey, you talk about 80-20, right? Well, okay, if I only got to put 20% of my money down, right, and you're going to give me the 80% of the rest, well, that money I would have had to put down, if I had to put 100%, now I can use that to do something else. Oh, I could start a business. I could invest in something else. I could take 20% out of that 80%. If I want to get into investing, put another 20% down. So there's what investors call other people's money. And that's just speaking about real estate. But, I mean, credit's everything. I say cash is king, but credit's everything. It really is. People, like in today's age, you just need it. You really do. Nobody's really spending cash on anything anymore. Inflation's so high. What are you going to do? You're going to save cash for the next 30 years?
Well, and right? it's so...
And your income and the value of $1 isn't even going to keep up with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not.
Yeah, obviously real estate values have gone up, but if you can do 20% down, invest in 500,
sure,
you're going to actually get a return on that, over what you pay in interest.
Yeah.
So
it's always control your controllables, man. I did a seminar the other day, and I always love there's 5 ways to break down, or 5 pieces of data to break down a FICO score, right? And most of them you control yourself. The only thing you don't control is age, it's length of history. Everything else you control on your own. Look, if you're going to get new credit, okay, get new credit. Don't run too many inquiries in a row, okay? What's another controllable? Pay on time. And if you can't, put it on auto pay at least, because the worst thing you could have is a late payment. It's 35% of your score. That point value is 192.5 points. What do you think happens the moment you get a late payment? You're probably going to lose 100 points. So now if you were in a position to buy something, you're definitely out of a position, because no lender that sees a fresh late payment is going to take you. It doesn't matter how good your credit score is. You're going to need at least 6 months of continuous payments after that. But say if they did, right? Your score is probably still not going to be high enough, just from you're probably going to lose triple digits unless you have solid other trade lines backing that up. But more than likely, man, you're out the boat. And these are some of the hard conversations that we have with people coming in, But yeah, to go back to it from that personal credit side, like, yeah, it's always educating. You're in control. And a lot of people just don't understand that, or they're afraid. It's like you were saying about the business person before. It's, drop that either ego or the fact that you don't know, and let somebody help you or educate you at least.
Well, yeah, your goal should always be, I don't need to have all the answers. My way doesn't need to be the right way.
Mm-hmm. I
just need to be getting the result that I need. If it's somebody else's idea, hell yeah, I'll even give them credit all day long, right? So we're going to get into business, but I got some questions here. I'm going to let you read them. Do you want to take a look?
All right.
You don't have to say who they are.
I can't even see that far.
No, okay, here. So these are...
it's that age, man.
Yeah. So we're going to go to the personal ones. So here's a good one. Man, these are all business related. Sorry,
that's okay.
Tend to work with entrepreneurs.
Business is good too.
But it's tangentially. So Richard, he owns a a retail store. His business credit is all right, but his personal credit is still low from previous issues, mainly related to when his business was having, starting up, getting going. So, how, and his question is like, well, why are they separate? And, how can I improve my personal credit without impacting, the businesses, I guess? Or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of work hand in hand too. It depends on.
Sorry, Richard, I didn't ask your whole question because it was really long.
But no, they work hand in hand. I mean, business credit, when you going back previously asking what you do, when you say credit repair, well, it's one of the reasons why credit solutions, right? Personal business, lending, debt relief, other things we're adding, right? Not to get off track there. But to answer Richard's question, they're separate for many reasons. I mean, number one, from a tax liability standpoint, I'm not an accountant, right? So, full disclosure, but you're going to separate your business from your personal. It's a liability thing. Number one, number two, business credit is actually an asset of part of that business as well. So say if you ever wanted to sell it or complete some kind of exit, you can look that business up. You can see, what's their credit score? That's an asset of the business. You can also see, hey, it also could tell you, does this guy or this company or whomever's in charge, like, do they do the right things with this business too? So it kind of plays both sides of the coin. It's good if you want to exit. If you're buying, it's good to see, are they who they say they are, right? But to go back to, why do you need both or the personal? I mean, number one, if you have business credit, and look, even if you got to run both together, personal guarantor or just the EIN, whatever the case may be, to not go down the rabbit hole too much.
Well, when you start up a business nowadays,
yeah,
it's impossible not to.
Well, yeah, and it's also where you're getting it from. So if you're doing anything in the SBA, right, you're always going to have the personal guarantor. I don't care what it is, that's SBA guideline. It's always going to be that. If you go to any bank, right, any standalone bank, I don't care if it's a big bank or a community bank, you're more than likely going to have the personal guarantor of that. There are some things, depending on what you're doing, if you're going to auto manufacturer, depending on how many, if you're getting a fleet or whatever the case may be, you might be able to get EIN only funding through that. Certain companies will allow that. Well, why is that? Well, you have an asset, depreciating or not, it's still an asset kind of tied to that. It's not
that they can take back.
Right, it's not unsecured. Private lending, sure. Private lending, that's one, depending on the lender, that you can use your business fundability index for it too. But it also helps. Yeah, even if you have the personal guarantor, okay, well, that's one side of the coin. What's the business doing? Yeah, we have tax returns, but what does their credit score look like too? Well, that could separate. Maybe you need funding for 6 figures. Now you might have the ability to get 7 figures. I don't know, right? PG for personal guarantor. So PG or not, it still has an effect or a merit to it. And it's something we're finding out a lot more. The last couple of years have been really unique because you see the shift in the real estate market, right? To where houses get this crunch, so it slows down buyers. But what we've noticed is that more businesses are looking for funding to set them up for a position to either get funding or working capital, or to get their ducks in a row, or they just need money in general to survive. So it's a pretty crazy dynamic to see that flip. And what are you going to see when it happens? I know it's going to be the same way. Real estate, there's going to be more supply, interest rates are low, and business side's going to slow down a little more. So it was a really unique dynamic to see that. But going back to Richard, that's why you should have the business side. But for the personal side, look, if you're coming in as a new business, yeah, a lot of people don't understand that you can get business credit cards too, the right ones, without even having a dime of revenue. Credit card companies, they want to do business, right? They love startups, especially if your social security number, right, your personal credit report has all the data needed there. You have some income. You got some money. Oh, yeah, cool. We'll give you a start. They don't care. Again, what were we just talking about? Defaulting and everything else. Like, they're going to win, okay? It sounds to me, without seeing Richard's credit report, and this is the key for most business owners, too. When business owners are trying to get funding or they have a problem, most of the time, about 85, 90% of the time, it's a personal credit card utilization problem, meaning their statement balances are too high, their percentage of utilization is too high. It doesn't matter what the number is, like in what they owe, it's matter what's that percent. Is it 50? Is it 70, right?
So what's a good percent that should be keeping it at?
You should be on
zero, but in a real world.
Zero. But if you let the statement balance close and report at least, that sweet spot is 1 to 10%. A lot of people online will say it's 30. Again, like I've said before,
it's a lot of interest to pay.
And again, it's also by statement balance. So say this: if you have a $10,000 credit card limit, right, and you have a $3,000 statement balance, I went to Best Buy, bought a bunch of new AV equipment, right? It cost me $3,000. Okay, you spent $3,000. Then all of a sudden you get the alert: oh, the statement closed, $3,000. Okay, yeah, I know I'm going to pay that off in full. Well, guess what? It's still going to report to the credit bureau that you have that $3,000 balance. So it's going to kind of technically make it look like you have a 30% utilization, even though you know you're going to pay it in full. So what's going to happen? That score is going to dip. The idea is to pay it before the statement closes, usually a week or two before it closes, because it will show as a zero. If you pay it in full, it will show as a zero balance.
That wasn't even possible back before the internet.
Writing checks.
You had to wait to get a bill to pay it. Like, you couldn't.
Unless you were doing in the dark, right? Bi-weekly payments. I'm going to write a check, just magically get it there.
Yeah, I remember Kohl's, dude, if you don't use a Kohl's card, man,
that's my
You're getting taken advantage of, and I love going into Kohl's. You buy a pair of jeans and somehow I save $400, right? Like, they're phenomenal. They're just giving it away. But I would get use that Kohl's card, and then I would go right over and pay it. Yeah. Because I know I wouldn't remember,
Yeah. But going back to Richard, if he's got a scoring problem, you gotta get the personal cards off. If you're using personal for business, stop doing that. Go get business credit cards. You got to make sure you get the right ones, because there are business credit cards that will report monthly to your personal credit report. And yes, you're going to have to personal guarantor them too, more than likely. And that's okay.
All right, Rich, you got your marching orders. Get back to work.
Chop, chop. Yeah.
All right, we got Sarah over here. So she owns a small family-run restaurant. Recently took it over.
Awesome.
So struggling with her business credit score. And it's affecting her ability to secure loans. So what can she do to quickly improve her credit score?
Well, that's And
it's always quick, right?
Well, it's going to be
the real answer is, why'd you put it off for so long, right?
Well, it does.
Assuming that's there.
Well, it does take time. You got to remember, most of the stuff, business or personal, it's always on a 30-day cycle, and everybody's like, "Why does it take so long?" It's not in our control. It's on reporting. And Sarah's question is a little can have multiple answers. Like, if she's having trouble getting funding, well, what's the reason why? Is there something on the business credit report that's stating that, or is something on your personal, if you have the personal guarantor, holding you back? Or it could be a mixture of both. And I had this conversation before we started today with another business owner that I was speaking to this morning. We'll have to edit that one. I just lost my train of thought with that. I had this conversation, with him this morning. It's where do you know that you stay? Like, what is the goal? Like, what are you doing? Like, you have to figure out, like, what position to get in. You need to see the data. Like, why is that? Oh, here, we'll edit this out again. But no, I know what I was going to say. The conversation I had with this business owner this morning was, like, look, credit's just a barrier of entry. And a lot of people forget that. It's a barrier of entry. That doesn't mean, like, I have a great credit score, I have a great business credit score, I'm entitled now to whatever I want. I want a $500,000 loan because my business credit score, my Paydex score on DMB is 100. So I want a $500,000. Oh, you do? Okay, great. Cool. Well, guess what? That credit score is only the barrier of entry. What else is there? How long have you been in business? Have you been in business at least 2 years? Okay, that's one thing. What do your tax returns look like? Do you have 2 years of tax returns? What does your personal look like? What does your business look like? What does a P&L statement look like? What do your bank accounts, and more importantly, what do your deposits look like? Like, what's coming in? So
it could be like if she doesn't own the property, that would be an issue because she doesn't necessarily have assets.
I mean, yeah, sure, could be, or even personal assets, not just business assets. Again, like, how is it being dictated? I'm sure that there's probably a personal guarantor on that side too. I mean, if you're talking about assets, I mean, maybe an SBA loan. Again, I'm the credit guy, not the lender, but there's always other moving parts. Like credit's just the barrier of entry. It doesn't matter if it's personal or business. Like look at it on the personal side. Like when you're ready to look at a house, a real estate agent's gonna say the first thing, hey, I want to go buy a home. Okay, great. Let me ask you this. What are you pre-approved for? Right? And if you're not, or if you're dequalified, they're not. You say beat it, man. You don't even have the other tangibles here. Well, because your credit score stinks. You're not coming in. Yeah. Well, it's the same thing in anything in lending. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that's the barrier of entry. Then once you get into that barrier of entry, okay, now you have 1 foot in the door. Now, okay, these other tangibles, because we need to know if we can even give you what you're asking. So I hope that answer helps because, it's a little short question. Need some more data on that one.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense though. It's and that's the truth of it. Like, we don't give silver bullet little secret hacks. Yeah. It's about grinding. It's complicated. It's complicated.
Yeah. Well, so I'll go back to that. There's always in business credit. There's always 3 C's, right? There's the credit, which is one piece. Usually anything like you're still going to need 2 out of 3, and you could combine personal. So it's either credit, cash flow, or collateral.
Credit, cash flow, collateral. Check them out, Sarah. Got more questions? Reach out. We'll get you. All right. Let's cut it, man. What do you think? You ready to wrap it up? Get some chop fin?
Oh, man.
Hell yeah, man. I know. So I just want to take a minute to thank First United Land Trust and Transfer. Is that the whole name?
Yeah, First United Land Transfer. Thank you, guys.
Great studio, amazing stuff. Thank you, Tony.
Tony's
working the grips. And thank you to my partners and to Brian and Nate for keeping me from saying right? No, I'm just kidding. So, Dave, thank you for coming in, man. Love working with you. Love what you do.
Thank you, man. Love you guys, man.
Yeah, man. It's been a pleasure.
It's been fun.
All right, guys. Cut it. Oh, yeah. Be great.
Be great.